This episode of the E-commerce Playbook podcast is brought to you by Toki Loyalty Memberships and Referrals. Right now, Toki is partnering with Common Thread Collective to offer a free 30-day extended trial of their cutting-edge customer loyalty platform. Go to buildwithtoki.com/CTC to accept this offer. That's buildwithtoki, TOKI.com/CTC.
All right, this is an incredibly overdue episode. I don't know how we've never done this. This is kind of blowing my mind. BG and I are currently standing about 22 feet from one another, although you can't tell because we couldn't figure out how to make the incredible Skullcandy studio service both of us at the same time, or at least I couldn't because my technical skills are limited. But I'm really excited to finally be joined by Brian Garofalow, the CEO of Skullcandy and one of my closest friends and biggest career advocates. BG, good to finally have you, man.
Hey, it was fantastic to finally be here 22 feet away. Very specific measurement, but yeah, long overdue. Excited to be here. Taylor, thank you very much. The feeling, is very, very mutual. I've been in awe of your career and see you go from a what if guy to an incredible thought leader in the space of e-commerce. So I'm more than humbled to share the mic with you.
Thank you, sir. So for those of you who don't know, CTC exists because of BG in a roundabout way. When I was working at the last agency I was employed at, which is now an agency that is now VaynerCommerce, he came to my founding partner, Jordan Palmer, with an idea for a brand. And his idea was a brand that is still someday going to come to fruition. It's our shared vision of a business called the Maple Union. We won't go down that road today because it's coming soon and we're going to save it for that time. But he brought the idea to Jordan, my founding partner, and Jordan brought me in on the project. And I got a chance to meet BG, and we got to work on an exciting idea together that ended up not happening. But that was the start of the relationship that Jordan and I turned into Common Thread Collective. And so I owe a lot. In addition to that, FC Goods, which was the start of 4x400. And really that vision was an introduction, or was a gift from BG to me for my 30th birthday. So many weird intertwined roads. Are you looking around for yours? That we share, including now sharing an office together and getting to work together all the time. So part of where I wanted to start, BG, is that we exist in sort of two different worlds. You've been in the brand side exclusively, and you've worked in, I would say, even larger corporations than I ever have. I've been earlier in the startup phase, and I think we sort of have this intrigue to each other because of that. We sort of look over the fence at each other's worlds and wonder, what's going on over there? It's exciting and energizing. But you've navigated that world to now getting to be the CEO of an incredible consumer brand that people all over the world know and are excited about. And I've watched you go from me in whatever restaurant we were in, a TGI Fridays or something, dreaming about a startup idea to where you're at now. And that career progression has been really cool to watch. And watching you navigate the companies that you've been in has been a thing that I've been fascinated by. And we got a lot of marketers that listen to this. And I don't know that it's very normal to see marketers cross over to the CEO role into consumer world. And so maybe you could give people a little sort of quick journey through your career story and how you've ended up where you're at today.
Sure. It is funny. Before I started, I just love that you bring up the looking over the fence at each other, because I've always felt like that you and I are so close, but so far. And always wondering, what you're doing, how you're doing it. And then I think of my little, remedial world over here is why would you be interested in this? But I think a very good symbiotic relationship. All right. So career path, I think I've been, product of probably two things that are really common. One, just a standard blue collar work ethic and the drive to go reach potential. Something I think that I see in people, you kind of either have it or you don't. It's usually, if it's built from a pretty young age. I think I get that from my dad. So always just think I can do a little more than what I'm doing now. And it's always pushed me career wise to go try and reach the next level. I think when I was 20 years ago in college, end game for me was CEO. And I thought that I'd be able to be good at that. And there's a long, long path to get here, but the stars aligned. Here I am. That's kind of number one. Number two, timing. You always read all the Harvard Business Reviews around companies like Microsoft, and Bill Gates says, well, there would have been 50 different Microsofts. I was just the one that was there at the right place at the right time. So grew up Southern California, kind of their free time was all about skateboarding and soccer. And was never very good at either one of them, but loved them both incredibly passionately. Skateboarding more so really shaped my friend group, my taste in music and art and, all the social activities outside of just the art and the sport of skateboarding itself. And so I got into the brands, and Southern California just happened to be the epicenter of the board sports industry. And I was there at the right place at the right time. That the trajectory was incredibly steep with the amount of consumers, brands, business that was happening. So I got to be here to experience that. Right when I got out of college, I started working. My very first job, the very first corporate job, was a company called Soul Technology that makes Etnies and S in America footwear, 32 snowboard boots. And I started working on the marketing side for the snowboard boot brand. And, just always one of those people, going back to number one of like the drive. I was always there, like in early, there late. I'm here to carry the box to the trade show. I'm here to do my work. I'm here, have a late night conversation with somebody 7 rungs above the ladder with me just to spitball ideas and learn. And that kind of helped me with a progression through the board sports industry. I spent about, a good 15, 20 years in various roles in board sports. I ended up getting to run marketing for great companies like Ruka RVCA Apparel, where I was in Remats, DC Shoes, Element Skateboards. There's super cool stuff that bring a lot of nostalgia to a lot of people kind of our age.
Well, and in the heyday of all those brands too, a lot of them as the center of culture.
Yeah, exactly. So awesome with culture and coolness and, being able to invest in doing fun stuff, like really great experience. So kind of the bad side of that is, I saw a lot of waste just as far as, the operation side of those businesses. Things like, we had to guess what the consumer was going to want 18 months from now. We had to be the bank to provide terms to all these wholesale accounts. We had to be a significant logistics operation, shipping product all around the world. So I thought, I'm super smart. I can go fix these big problems that are a whole lot bigger than myself, and started a good tech startup with a friend and then a third co-founder, raised some money up in Silicon Valley and built a business called YoShirt. And YoShirt, in my mind, was going to solve all of these significant ideas via make-on-demand business in apparel and accessories. What it ended up being was more of like rapid prototyping and novelty gifting. But it worked really well, learned a ton, and that was kind of my first real dip into e-commerce business. So owning an app-based business where you have kind of these 2 major gates: 1, download the app; 2, convert somebody into a sale. Did well with the business, certainly on the education side, ended up selling the business, and then was consulting for a while. Got back into brand building because that's what I love at the core. I'm a brand marketer, and was working with a company called Board Riders, which owned half of the surf industry all around the world. And then a good friend of mine called me up about Igloo coolers and said, "Hey, we're doing a turnaround effort. It's PE owned. We need somebody to come in and run the brand and run direct to consumer business. And we want you to do that." And my first reaction was, absolutely not. Why on earth would I go work for a cooler company? This seems funny to me. But when we're talking about career paths, I started really seeing like, hey, this is a much larger customer base than I've worked with before. It's a much broader consumer base and customer base than I've worked with before. Get exposure to some of the biggest retailers and biggest companies in the world, like Target, Walmart, Dick's Sporting Goods, et cetera, et cetera. So I ended up coming around and did 5 years with Igloo as the chief marketing officer there. And so I owned our direct consumer business. You and I had one of our significant wins together, building a business that started less than zero and today is a pretty significant part of their distribution. And PE owned, so ended up having a great exit with Igloo. We sold it to a company called Dometic. Now, Dometic is a large global publicly traded B2B supplier for marine and RV industries, and they wanted to get a little more consumer facing. That was their thesis in purchasing Igloo. For me personally, I ended up as the chief marketing officer for the Dometic Group. $3.5 billion in revenue, 12,000 people, global enterprise, publicly traded, headquartered in Stockholm. So incredible opportunity for me to have a much larger global exposure to business, but the commute from Southern California to Stockholm, a little tough, but amazing experience. Love the people there. And then it kind of brings us to where we are today. So I've always been very intentional about relationships. Do unto others as you would wish them to do unto you. And that has served me very, very well. People know that I'll pick up the phone. People know that I'll do what I say I will do. People know, hopefully, that I will not burn them if I'm going to deliver something. The chairman of the board for Igloo had gone on to become the chairman of the board of Skullcandy and called me up and said, "Hey, we are private equity owned, doing a turnaround. This is much closer to the consumer that you know and love, and we're looking to make a change here. So come on board." It was a little earlier than I was expecting, but as a goal in the career, having a great network of people around me, specifically this Stephen Shire, who's chair of our board at Skullcandy, brought me over and owned by Mill Road Capital. I think they had some confidence in me of having experience with the consumer, the distribution channels, and prior PE experience as well. So very long-winded answer, but scrappy little skate kid from Southern California to here we are now. Look at us. Who would have thought?
Yeah. So there's a couple themes there that I'm glad you hit on, because they're the ones that I would notice. One, you talked about relationship, and this is a thing that you're world class at, is that you know how to maintain relationship. You know how to invest in people and make them feel cared for. I use this story all the time. Even it shows up in your vendor relationships. In 12 years of running CTC, I've had 2 customers ever show up at my office to celebrate work that we've done on their behalf, and you were one of them. And what that does for people in their experience of you is they just feel appreciated. They feel cared for. They want to win for you. They want to be connected in a way that just shows up in so many ways that may not benefit you in the moment, but 10 years from now, you're going to need that thing. And that person, and you just have a giant web of that, of people. And it showed up when you showed up at Skullcandy. You brought everybody with you. You had a great network of people to come and help you do the job. And so where did, is that an inherent skill? Is that something your dad taught you? Where did that idea that would matter come from?
Man, it's a great question. But well, first off, thank you. I appreciate hearing that. The inherent skill. Yeah, I think that's, one of those things that's probably ingrained in you from friends and family at a very early age. So a lot of people that looked out for me when I was young, the neighbors, the older brothers, of course, the parents, the teammates, the teachers, all those types of things that, just kind of impressed upon me of again, the very simple do unto others. Having a lot of people that looked out for me that really made me appreciate those things. And then I also think, well, here's a very important career lesson that I had as I was kind of getting the next promotion. You know this. Not a lot of people that don't know me that are listening would know this. I'm a very sarcastic person. I have a very dry sense of humor, and especially with friends and definitely close friends, I joke a lot. So I brought that personality into the workplace, and it's happened 2 times very specifically. One time hit me really hard was I made a joke that was very dry and sarcastic to somebody who was, an individual contributor just starting their career, and I was a director or VP level at some point. And I got a call from their boss saying, "What the heck did you say to this person? They're in my office crying, thinking that you were really mad at them." I was like, "Oh my gosh, I completely forgot that the goofy 13-year-old kid is now the 35-year-old VP, and my words have a lot more weight with certain people than I think, because I think I'm joking and they don't." So that was one that hit me hard of okay, understand the position. And when people need and want to believe in you and have faith in you, that also means that when you are angry, they're adversely affected. When you are appreciative, they're encouraged even more. And also just logic, right? Here, I might say, here's a strategy, go put it in place. I don't push the buttons. I have no idea what's happening on the ground floor of customer acquisition today because I'm so far removed from it. But I know that every single one of those people has an outsized impact to success or failure. So let them know. You're doing amazing. Thank you and congratulations. Or we need to improve here. Let's fix this.
Yeah. And I've watched that skill sort of enable you to solve business problems in a unique way too. Like I think a great example is in Igloo, like this was a very legacy retail distribution where you were suddenly responsible for this direct business that in some ways is like threatening to an existing infrastructure of people and opportunity. And so it would be very easily for that to become an adversarial type position inside of an organization like that. But one of the things that you did early on that I'll reference a lot too was that you started to hold these like education internal sessions where you would invite people in Katy, Texas, where Igloo is headquartered, to a dialogue with you about what we're trying to accomplish, how this serves the brand, why it's going to be good for everything, to build sort of consensus. And this is a thing watching you inside of a bigger corporate entity that I think is a real master skill, is like understand that people are inherently going to be the ones that are going to be advocating for you behind closed doors. They're going to have an opinion on your work. And the more positive advocates you build inside of an organization, the better your chance of being seen as successful is. And so I think that it doesn't just show up in like friendship, it shows up in very practical business success. And I think that's an unique example.
Yeah, totally agree. And, the more and more I work with people and, scaling the amount of people that I work with, the very, very basic lessons that really mattered to me when I was reporting up into somebody are even more so reflected on me now that I'm trying to drive an entire culture is clarity, transparency, honesty. Like, hey, we have a strategy. This is it. We're showing up to work to execute this every day. And you have a question? Ask me. And I'm here to try and give you the best amount of transparency and clarity that I can today of here's the job to do and let's go do it. And then consistency. We've got a long-term strategy at Skullcandy. We have an annual plan with key strategic initiatives, and then down to the individual contributor level, it's like, hey, here's how this ladders up into the overall long-term multi-year strategy. Like, ideally, the team knows what they're here to do, and they see the constancy and consistency and transparency in me of, I'm not going to go chase the butterflies of, oh, I like this now. Let's go pivot our entire strategy and leave the staff in chaos, unless something significantly out of our control happens that we need to be proactive or reactive to, a la COVID.
If you're still using a first-generation loyalty platform like Yotpo or Loyalty Lion and running a traditional points-type program, think again. Toki's research proves that running a cashback loyalty program or a paid membership loyalty program can increase your retention revenue by 5x. Toki is easy to implement, design-friendly, and integrated with all the leading platforms in the Shopify ecosystem. Sound too good to be true? See for yourself. Right now, they're offering a 30-day free trial and free onboarding for e-commerce playbook listeners. So go to buildwithtoki.com/CTC to try them out for free for 30 days, or click the link in the show notes. That's buildwithtoki, TOKI.com/CTC.
So the other thing you said in your story that I want to go to is you self-identified as a brand marketer, which I bet even before you would call yourself a CEO, you'd probably call yourself a brand marketer at the identity level in terms of who you are. At least that's my experience. And this is another fun thing where we're like opposites. We're yin and yang in a way that we serve each other and that like I'm the tactician that's executing, and I love to partner with people like you because it's always the part I don't control. I don't control the ethos or the spirit of the thing or the product. And so I'm responsible for distributing it. And if it's kind of shallow and sucks, my job's really, really hard. And vice versa. I think I get to sort of be the wizard that supports your vision and distributes it broadly, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm curious, one, what does that phrase mean to you, brand marketer? What makes a good brand? And then let's use this to jump into Skullcandy. Why did you believe that Skullcandy was a special brand?
Okay, great. You're going to have to help me remember all those three things by the time I get to the end of this. So brand marketing, what does that mean? We have the idea of a brand that is completely surrounding and enveloping and inside and outside of Skullcandy, the products. So anybody can go make a widget and they can put features and benefits in it and match a price point at a price band that consumers show that they want and go transact and sell that. But transact is very transactional. It's usually going to be a one-time purchase, and that consumer is going to go get the next one in their replacement cycle with a better price or more features, and brand agnostic. They don't care. When you have a brand wrapped into that product, then in comes the idea of community. So who is the cohort of consumers that care about building community, doing things a certain way, standing for something, supporting some things, building other things that can all be wrapped up in a logo and an identity. So when I think of brand marketing, it's bigger than even the company. So it involves the consumers. For us as a big wholesale business, it involves the customer on the wholesale level. It involves the media. It certainly involves everybody who has a hand in the use of the products. For us, the content creators, who are the people that are building the content that people are listening to through our headphones, all those types of things. And when you get it right, and specifically in lifestyle brands, you're usually dealing with a very aspirational consumer. So if you get that right there, then the consumers who are inspired by those aspirational consumers usually gravitate towards those brands. So the magic that ends up happening down to a tactical level of somebody like you is you execute brand correctly, your customer acquisition costs goes down, your lifetime value goes up. Then, when you're in a business case like ours, creates enterprise value.
I love how pragmatic you are about that. No, and this is the thing. So one, I think growing up in the skate culture, if you didn't experience this phrase you use, lifestyle brands was such a thing that I grew up around this idea of it. Mm-hmm. And it's connected very much to, I think, identity, right? This idea that this logo says something about me more than it does about the features and benefits of the product. That is all sort of secondary to the identity statement associated with the logo and the image, right? And skate culture or all these brands, surf culture, were very much that. There was some identity statement that was associated with it. And it's funny, I don't think I became aware of it until I went to college. And so I grew up in Orange County. A lot of these brands were obviously a part of our life in the era that we grew up in. And when I moved to Arizona, all of a sudden, it was the first time I realized that the idea of being from Orange County had an identity label to other people in a way that was the first light bulb for me of oh, there's a culture here that people have an impression of that's associated with me. And it was tied up in all that stuff. The Billabongs, the Quicksilvers, the Rusties, the Volcoms, all of it. It was all tied up in a similar way to people's mind, but I didn't realize it until I saw people experience me through that lens.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love when you have this, a big culture, like say it's the board sports culture. When you are wearing a Quicksilver t-shirt and you're a kid from Orange County and you're going to Arizona, immediately that's going to have people perceive you as a certain way. When you're in Orange County and you see somebody wearing the exact same color t-shirt with a very similar logo on it, but it might be Volcom or Furley or Brixton or Captain Finn or now Possum, all of these different brands say something very specific about the consumer. So one, it's do you know what surfing is? But then two, are you this type of surfer or that type of surfer from this area or that area? And if some people know about a certain brand, they're usually tip of the spear, and you can usually trust that they're probably a really good surfer. Or for me, I got into sneakers at a young age, just being into soccer. It was one of those things, the feet, the shoes, all of this. And we had our own brands. And it was when I saw somebody wearing a certain logo at a young age, it was oh man, they're a soccer player. And it's really, really evident to me. And nobody else knows this, we're in a certain club. And then skateboarding has a similar thing going on with shoes. But what I even like about it more is when I look at somebody and see a pair of shoes they're wearing, it's oh, they're a skateboarder. But then if they've got a certain wear pattern on their shoes, it's oh, wow, they're really good.
Yeah. And you can tell that immediately. Yeah. It's so interesting. So tell me about then, and there's an interesting thing that I think you have, and Igloo and Skullcandy are both, I think, in different ways, clear examples of this. One, the other secret about you is people don't know is that you love America, and your real ambition is actually to be the mayor of Irvine, California. People don't know that, which I'm sure is an inevitability for you. But you have this sort of deep appreciation for, I think, the depth and the grandiose nature of a story, right? And so one of the things I think you love about Igloo, 1947, Americana. They're in every garage in America. Like there's substance there that you can point to and appreciate in a way that also I think is connected to authenticity and what's real. And you have a real good sense of that. So that was it for Igloo. And maybe you can touch on that. But what is it with Skullcandy? Why did that appeal to you in a way that you thought you could tap into identity associated with that brand?
Yeah. Okay. Great questions. I think Igloo, like when I really started taking it seriously, like it's such a no-brainer, and I'll get into that. Skullcandy is, I think it's a no-brainer for someone like me. Like the example of you're wearing a Quicksilver t-shirt. I know you're a surfer, or you wear have a very specific wear pattern on your skate shoes. I know that you know how to do this specific trick. So the first one, Igloo. When I look at the broadest scope of consumer goods in the US and lifestyle businesses and telling stories, like you got to hit on certain things. Authenticity is a big one. Is there some meat on the bone of story that you can tell? With Igloo specifically, there was a bit of a turnaround effort there. And here's like one of the things where I think I've identified a couple opportunities for me personally that worked really well with the concept of a turnaround effort, but with a brand. Is it really a turnaround effort, or does it just need to be resuscitated? So Igloo is the perfect example of checks every single box. Igloo is 75-year-old American legacy brand. They invented a category. They manufacture in the US. The unaided brand awareness is phenomenally high in the US. And then affinity was also still pretty high, but they're not a marketing business. When I showed up, and essentially like the last 25 years of Igloo's existence, they're an American manufacturer, and marketing is not a core skill set, always farmed out to your agency partners and, change from time to time. And when there was some extra contribution margin from a sales win, like, oh, let's do an ad campaign, but not a lifestyle marketing business. So I look at that and say, okay, let's take our step back here and look at the whole market. And, if you're in America in the last 10 years and you think coolers, what's the brand that comes to mind?
In the last 10 years?
Yeah.
Am I allowed to say it? I used to not be allowed to say it.
You're allowed to say it.
It's Yeti.
Right. So Yeti is a phenomenal brand marketer. They are not a phenomenal manufacturer. So they came in and just absolutely ate Igloo's lunch as far as brand is concerned, and built this lifestyle and had the idea of the premium outdoor consumer that says, hey, instead of buying a $50 cooler, you need this $500 cooler because you love the outdoors and camping and hiking and hunting and fishing and all of these things that, people are spending exorbitant amounts of money on experience with. But they put this gap in the market, literally from $50 ASP up to $500. So there's all this white space in the market. And then they put this giant gap in the market from manufacturer to brand. So now I look at this and say, we have this competitive advantage with manufacturing. We have a competitive advantage of manufacturing in the US. We have a competitive advantage with awareness. All we need to do is turn the lights back on. So how can we go tell our story, which is unique? How can we be scrappy and get, the dollar value out of 10 cents that we spend? And it brings a lot of the board sports mentality into it. So instead of going to be, the Nike of coolers, we're going to win, which was Yeti. Igloo came in with our authentic story and just said, oh, we're going to go have the most fun. Like, you guys go climb Mount Everest with a 700-pound cooler. We're going to climb into our backyard and have a barbecue with our friends. So we told lots and lots of fun stories that were all about it was FADA, FADA, fun, American, durable, and accessible. And we beat that drum and we did lots of storytelling, and people put smiles on their faces with it. And you know what? This is really interesting and fun. And then, tactically and logistically, we put the right merchandise offering together for direct to consumer. So the right price points and margins and storytelling and impulse nature of purchase, and built a really large direct to consumer business on it. Now, the other part of this to touch on is, yes, significant part of that business is wholesale. So how do we go build a direct to consumer business that doesn't ruffle the feathers? So I've always been able to prove out and love to share this with two things. One, direct to consumer business is a testing ground and ends up becoming a leading indicator of what works and what doesn't. We can take data, bring it to a wholesale partner and say, hey, we made all these investments. We had 9 failures and we had 1 runaway success. We can go replicate this in your stores. And we did that, going from, very small stories with some direct to consumer wins to replicate the same concept in Walmart at 100x the scale. And then the second thing always ends up being tip of the spear, brand building, rising tide floats all boats. Hey, when we can be successful with the consumer who wants to come directly to the brand, we know that we can go replicate this, scale this, and instead of having a pie of 100 units and cutting 30 of them off for direct to consumer, we're going to turn the pie into 1,000 units.
So what I think is so interesting in both these cases, and we'll use this to dive into the specifics, I think, with Skullcandy, is when you come to me, and usually both of us, as we're considering career opportunities, we're having conversations. In both cases, my point of view of the direct-to-consumer business was like, these are poor genetic attributes of products that work well on the internet, right? Like shipping coolers at low AOV and high value to weight ratio and minimal LTV creates complexity. Headphones aren't too different. It's consumer electronics is challenging. There's warranty. There's not that margins aren't insane. There's not a lot of LTV. Like in the sort of underlying, and a lot of this show is about sort of dissecting the genetic attributes. But you've always known something a little bit bigger than that, which is what you just described, I think, with Igloo, which is that, look, what we need direct to consumer to do is not to be the engine for the financial growth of the business forever. It has this other role to play that can still be margin accretive and all good financial objectives, but it's part of a bigger story when you're building a brand, when you're building a business into an omni-channel distribution. So why were you confident in Skullcandy? Why did you think it could work from where it was at to where you thought it could go?
So again, going back to that story of like, hey, here's somebody wearing a Quicksilver shirt. They're into surfing. Here's somebody with a very specific wear pattern on their shoes. And, I'm one of the people that know, like, hey, just intrinsically, because I've done this for so long and I am that consumer, I know that this is going to work for this cohort of consumers. The data says there's this many of them around. This many people are inspired by those people. So here's a total addressable market. Will this work or not? And then the magic is, can we turn the lights back on with the brand? So many things that were similar with Igloo and the cooler space are similar with Skullcandy and the consumer electronics space. So you had Yeti that came out of nowhere and created a much larger market and much higher AOV and a brand in consumer electronics. That's Apple. So AirPods didn't exist in the very recent past, which is crazy to think. But they came in and just absolutely reset the market. So I know that there is a ton of white space between us and Apple. I know there are a very specific group of consumers that want to be part of a community and a brand like we can go build. And I know that we have a brand with high awareness and high affinity, but it just hasn't been as aggressive with brand marketing in the last about 7 years. But when I go talk to consumers and I tell them about Skullcandy, or that I'm working Skullcandy, their response is always, oh, I remember them. Not one person of the hundreds that I've literally talked to have said, oh, I don't like them. It's, oh, I remember them. High awareness, high affinity. We go back to the consumer, turn the lights on in a 2024 type of way, introduce the brand in a modern way to new consumers that are a little bit younger. We will go win. Most confidence in that. We just have to do the best job of being Skullcandy that we can. The fodder for Skullcandy is fun. So it's very similar model, FUN. So S is literally just fun. We're here to go amplify the fun for a specific set of consumers. And it is intrinsic with those set of consumers of how or what fun means to them and how we deliver that. Most people, they see a skateboarder sliding down a handrail or a snowboarder going upside down on purpose or a surfer in a 10-foot barrel at pipeline. And that is, oh my gosh, that's insane. Why on earth would they ever want to do that? To our group of consumers at the very core level, that looks like fun. I want to go do that. The U is for underdogs. So we're a challenger brand. We absolutely support marginalized communities, whether that be something which seems as unmarginalized as a skateboarder or as marginalized as LGBTQ. So we're here for the underdogs as a challenger brand. And then the N is for next. One of the things that makes us special is we are the skateboarders, the surfers, the snowboarders. We're at ground zero of culture and cultural epicenters and moments. We know what's coming next. So we get the advantage of our friend who's 16 is going to be the next big designer. They're on the trajectory. We know that. The next big musician, the next big athlete. We work with them because we're friends. We don't have to go pay them $2 million and have a team of 50 people go build one product with them because we only know them after they won their Grammy, things like that. So that's kind of our ethos there of fun. That's our version of fodder. And we're already starting to execute.
Is there something about like the idea? So obviously both of them contain this idea of fun, but the idea of the experience of the brand being positive, hopeful, energetic, that you think is a good place for consumer product to live? Like, is that intentional for you? Or is that just, you think it's your personality? What do you think? Why do you think that you've been drawn to that idea?
Yeah, I think personality wise, I'm drawn to that and drawn to that potential. Consumer goods in general, like they should be additive to the consumer's experience, right? If I want to listen to music, I want the product to connect to my source device very easily. I want the audio quality to sound good. I want the mic to work well. But, it would take it a little bit over the top if it made me feel good. And that is so incredibly difficult to do. But when you have the right team, the right staff, the authentic people that know how to create that sense of energy and excitement with the right consumer, that's special.
What do you think? Do you think the role of board sports is the same in culture? How do you think it's changed? And what do you think its impact is relative to the early years of our lives and even more broadly in America nowadays, or globally for you guys as a global brand?
Yeah, super, super great question. So way, way different today than it was 20 years ago. So 20 years ago on the upward trajectory as far as investment with consumers' times, like way more people were entering those sports and cultures and giving them a try. Way more brands and money and retailers, et cetera. A lot of that retail activity shifted to direct to consumer. It's been really tough on the specialty industry, which that has a significant impact in kind of the timeline and where board sports is in cultural zeitgeist, because all those specialty retailers are community centers. So people go hang out at the skate shop and watch the newest movie. People hang out at the surf shop and talk about the next swell coming in, all those types of things. And there's a lot less of them today because of direct consumer businesses with brands, because of Amazon, because of all the big retail.coms, et cetera. Now, you still have very high participation. There's definitely a big COVID bump. A lot of those board sports are in the Olympics. So as far as cultural zeitgeist, like participation still very much there, but the excitement, I would say, is objectively lower. So when you and I were in our height of, teens, early 20 years, we had wild personalities that were like, the craziest actors and musicians all rolled up into a skateboarder, a surfer, a snowboarder. And now as so much more money has come into it, we're kind of dominated by the energy drinks with sponsorship. It's very homogenized. Like most all of the athletes, which are inspirational, motivational, they seem very similar in aesthetics and performance and all those types of things where, I don't see as much, adrenaline shot excitement of all these wild characters that used to be out there. So I've also been through 3 cycles of this industry and know that it's cyclical in nature. So I very much feel like we're about to go on the upswing with just fun and excitement again. But I will say this, surfing always is and always will be phenomenally aspirational and sexy. It is people in exotic locations with amazing waves and sunshines and tans, etc. Snowboarding will always be aspirational of the wintertime version of surfing. Skateboarding will always be aspirational, inspirational because it is street culture and fashion and music, etc., etc. So skateboarding globally seems like the leader and always will be to me. Surfing, snowboarding always seem a little more like, I don't know, premium aspirational in nature. Now, all of this, put it in a little box because the 2024 version of Skullcandy is not just sports. That is 1/3 of our core consumer in the 2024 version of who we are. Like, as you've gone from when we were kids to today, that board sports world has absolutely evolved. And now we have two other very large consumer groups. One we just identify as the content creators. So this is you. It's the podcaster, the social media celeb, even the musician, the YouTube vlogger, the comedian, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have the third group, which is gaming. So all those other two groups are very similar to board sports, and you have the core lifestyle group. Like when I ask you, tell me about yourself, you might say, I'm a YouTuber. You might say, I'm a gamer. You might say, I'm a skateboarder. And each one of those groups has people that are very inspired by those core consumers who live a lifestyle around those activities.
It's really interesting to see, I think, the way that, social media and content has created, I think, these like subgenres that do influence culture just because of the amount of distribution they're able to get. Like it feels hard in our day, like so much of that content, I think about MTV as a sort of primary cultural engine in so many ways. And like skate videos, I feel like were a big, like there were these mechanisms of distribution that were much smaller that almost felt like there was some discovery to them. But now it's like you look at the Twitch streamers or these other people, their reach is just so huge globally that their influence is so outsized relative to feels like what could be created out of surf culture or these other things. It's just disproportionately more eyeballs in this way. That's been sort of, I think, a fascinating change to go after. And the good thing is that your product fits really well into serving that demographic of people. It's a technical responsibility that they need to have solved for. But what do you, like, how much of that do you think is like,
well, sorry, I can't help but interrupt here, but this is it's the evolution of media, right? So 20 years ago, if you're thinking skateboarding, we had 6 different magazines just in the US. We had tons of brand videos. We had 2 networks on television, broadcast networks, that one was dedicated to the culture and one had a significant amount of their content dedicated to the culture. As media has evolved, it's gone from traditional media to social media. And now, there are a handful of, again, just going into skateboarding, there's a handful of skateboarders that have the reach that is so significant with their audiences. They are bigger today than the entire media industry from 20 years ago with one person on their, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and X channels.
That's wild. Who is that? Is that Nija? Who is it?
Yeah, there's plenty of them. There's Nija, there's Andrew Reynolds, there's P-Rod, there's lots of people that are above and beyond the million fan mark. Of course, Tony Hawk, the biggest legend of the sport. And then you have people that you've never heard of that are, they would fall more into the content creator bucket for us than the board sports bucket, but they likely are very talented skateboarder, surfer, snowboarder, but they just decided that the industry isn't right for me. I'm going to go be my own industry. So a great example would be, blurs the line between the surfer and the content creator, but a Jamie O'Brien, pipe master, one of the greatest surfers of all time, and just decided, you know what, I'm going to go be a content creator first instead of a competitive surfer. And now he's got more reach. He's a multi-million person fan base, more reach than all of the surf magazines combined when they existed.
Yeah, that's nuts. How about, so one of the things that I've always thought is a little different for Skullcandy versus, let's say, apparel, where functionally, there's really no difference between the cotton t-shirts that everybody's printing their logo on when you're dealing with a lifestyle apparel business. Now, for somebody like Ruka, maybe there was, there's an evolution of that in some ways. But when you're talking about consumer electronics, there is a lot of technical specifications that do matter somewhat, right? If you're going to use those headphones, the microphone has to be good enough to so how does that play into, and what is it just like getting it to good enough? Is it about being technically excellent? How do you think about the technical part of what is a newer category for you to experience in that way?
Yeah, there's the blessing and the curse there, right? The blessing is we have a much higher barrier to entry as far as building a product. So the competition is it's not as easy for anybody off the street to go build a headphone company as it is to put a logo on a t-shirt. So the board sports apparel industry has absolutely suffered from death by 1,000 paper cuts. Every single one of those social media celebs has their own merch business, and every single time somebody buys a Kai Cenat t-shirt, that's probably a Vulcan t-shirt that they're not buying or something like that. When it comes to headphones, so we have a product team of 30 people that are all phenomenally intelligent engineers, hardware engineers, mechanical engineers, firmware engineers, industrial designers, all those things that it takes to build a really quality product. The curse here is, we have competitors that are significantly larger than us and have, our group of engineers, the competitive set group of engineers might be larger by a factor of 10. So it's pretty intense to be able to build a phenomenally quality product versus, the tip of the spear inventors of spatial audio. Skullcandy did not invent spatial audio, but we know how it works and we know how to build it into our products, whether it be with our own technology today or a license with somebody who built a feature set like that.
So you sort of mentioned it, right? There's the gorilla in the room. You're competing with the largest brand in the world, like the largest consumer brand with the most resources that's ever existed in human history. Like that's who you decided to go after in terms of the potential challengers. So when you think about that, like the product you're wearing right now, is it you want people to swap them out? You want them to own both? Do you think about people who don't have any of them yet? Like, how do you think about the actual market? Is it just a growing the TAM and you're going to take your piece? Are you trying to win market share? Like, how do you actually think about the category as it relates to the competition? And obviously there's more than just Apple, but they're obviously the behemoth in the room.
Of course. So there, I just want to use a scalpel instead of a shotgun, right? So of the 8 billion consumers on planet Earth here, how many of them are in the total addressable market for headphones? How many of them will likely be a purchaser of brand one that likely has an ecosystem, an operating system, and multiple hardware products that all connect together seamlessly? And then who are the people that should be Skullcandy consumers? So our consumer profiles, the lifestyle that we want to build and support and win the fan base of. And when we look at data, there's similar thing that we did at Igloo, like how many coolers does somebody own? How many do they need? How many do they want? What's a use case? Do I need to own a 110 quart gigantic cooler to go take my lunch to work? Of course not. So, hey, there's a real great example for one person that owned two different styles of coolers. So here, there's some fairly clear use cases. Everyday carry. So what I'm wearing right now, looks good, sounds good, connects well, microphone works. This is called our Dime 3 product, and you can purchase these for $30. The battery life is phenomenal. You're not going to have to charge these every single day. So when this is, comes in a cool case with unique industrial design that can hook right onto your keychain, those types of things like, this is just everyday use, and it's, I don't need to go spend $250 for this. Then you've got something like you're wearing, over the ear, noise canceling. If I'm going to go work out, if I want to focus, if I want to be in my zone, or if I want to travel and tune out the world around me, that's a great use case for that. If I want to go run or do something where, my body is physically moving a ton, we've got great products like, I got something in front of me here. an active product with an ear hook, so it's going to keep your product in place and a whole lot more stable. Wired buds, or I don't want to have to worry about charging, all of those types of things. So we're gonna develop product at the right price point with the right feature set for the right use case. And we know we have great fans with high LTV that want to buy every single one of those products for all those use cases. We also know that there would be fans or just consumers of other brands that may need or want multiple different types of products. And if we can be one of those of their 4 or 5 that they own, it's a big win for us.
Yeah, makes so sense. As you're talking, I'm like envisioning ad creative. I saw this image, like this is a thing I've seen people do. And I know I have this where it's like, you have AirPods 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, like, cause you've lost like 13 of them. And that's like $7,000 that you've wasted because this device that you want to carry around and use everywhere actually doesn't need to be like, there's a pragmatism to it that like, I'm seeing that we all sort of have that experience where we've renamed our Bluetooth devices so many times because we misplaced them. And what is the appropriate price for something you use every day? Like there's so many different ways to put it. But I like the idea that there's a specific somebody for whom this is a better option. And our job is to go find them and communicate that reality. If Skullcandy wins, why will it win? And if they lose, why will it lose?
Look, there's no if about that. We're absolutely winning, and we will continue to do so because we have a very clear strategy and direction. We have a phenomenally large total addressable market. We have an incredible staff who is insanely engaged, authentically in the spaces with the consumers that we want to win with. We have incredibly intelligent people that know how to build the right product very, very quickly and for the right price points. You know, every single thing we have or every single thing we need to win, we have. It's just a matter of executing. And I have a high sense of confidence that this team is a team that executes incredibly well and will continue to do so. So that's number one. Why would we not win? Something completely outside of our control that we're not prepared for. Hard stop. So, or a lot of people did not see COVID coming. Why would you? You can be prepared or not prepared for things like that. And then there's, the resource allocation of how much time, energy, and money should you be spending to be prepared for a what if scenario. But certainly in consumer goods, nobody could get any product into the US. And then everybody got too much into the US, and then retailer shelves got stocked full. And then you saw, direct consumer industry was like fire sale, get rid of everything for any price we possibly can. So those are incredibly tough situations that are the what ifs to be ready to plan for. But look, my confidence level is high because we have the right people, we have the right brand, and there's a lot of consumers out there that are excited for Skullcandy to come back.
The great Floyd Mayweather once said that the best skill a fighter can have is choosing their fights. And you, sir, have chosen your fights well all throughout your career. So I have no doubt that this is another one where there's a victory ahead. Where can people follow you? You're a little bit of a lurker on the internet, good for a sarcastic comments, maybe a trophy in your comments if you're lucky. But where could people keep in touch if they want to learn more about you?
Hey, getting a trophy in your comments has nothing to do with luck. You earned that, Taylor. You earned it.
You say that to all the girls. That's the problem. I see it all over the internet.
I definitely lurk around. I'm definitely on Instagram and LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. I'm on Twitter, X pretty frequently, but that's literally just to learn from you and all of your cohorts out there. So I would say LinkedIn is the easy one for any network stuff. Hit me up.
Yeah. Or hey, swing by our office. We'd love to host you. We got the next gen community center right here. So if you're ever in Costa Mesa, you can come by and see us both. BG, I owe you an immense debt of gratitude, man, for all of the support and care throughout the years. And I can't wait to see what you do with Skullcandy. And I mean this, if you're listening and you are an aspiring marketer or you're somebody who wants to one day run a consumer product company, this is the sleeper giant that you want to make sure you're following and keeping an eye on. He does it with as much intention, care, integrity, and quality as anyone you'll ever run into. And Skullcandy is going to follow in those attributes, and you'll be hearing more from that brand real soon. So appreciate you, sir. Always a pleasure.
Taylor, you're way too kind. Thank you again for having me on, and let's go win together.